Hey everyone, I'm Ace of Clay. I'm a sculptor, and every week I make a new sculpture. So I've started this tradition of sorts where every year I want to sculpt a creepier, more twisted version of the elf on the shelf. What did the elf on the shelf ever do to me? Nothing. I really liked making him look creepy a couple years ago. Remember this guy? This is an actual elf on the shelf that I sculpted over. You can check out that video in the description box if you haven't seen it, but super creepy. And then I followed this up with a plush version of him so you can have your very own messed up elf on the shelf. I call this the Holiday Hellion. This is the Holiday Hellion Classic. He's actually back on my website now. I restocked him for this year, so if you missed out on him last year, you can grab him now. But anyway, fast forward to now, and this year I decided to make a face hugger version of the elf on the shelf. Don't ask me where this idea came from. I really don't know, but I thought of it sometime last June. And so what I did was planning ahead, and maybe it was an ADHD manic episode, but I ordered a bunch of face hugger elf on the shelf plushes. I sketched out the design and this guy was born. This is the Holiday Hellion 2. He's available on my website right now if you want to grab one, aceofclay.com. This is probably the best plush I've ever made so far because he's posable. Like, you can bend his tail in any direction. You can bend his little tendrils, spread them out, curve them over. His head spins 360 degrees, so you can turn it, position it however you want. I think he looks kind of neat when you have him like in a crawling position like this. Then you turn his head to look at you. How's that for an elf on the shelf? He comes with a booklet hang tag with his own little holiday poem in it. He's got fuzzy hair, super high quality. Again, this is definitely the best plush I've released so far. And he makes a great tree topper, let me tell you. So if you're weird like me and you like, you know, things that you can't get everywhere, this guy is for you. All right, now back to my original train of thought. In this video, I am sculpting, I guess, a realistic version of this. So a face hugger elf on the shelf. I kind of like reverse engineered it. Normally you make the sculpture first, then you make the plush, but this time I made the plush first and then I made the sculpture after, so whatever. Either way, he turns out really cool and I really like it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's get this armature going. I've got my 10 gauge aluminum wire and we're gonna start shaping out the face hugger body, starting with the tail and then working our way up to the torso and then the top two tendrils. I added the second tendril and the neck and then wrapped them all together with some 16 gauge wire. Now I'm brushing on some Bacon Bond and we're gonna start bulking out the, I guess, torso area with some Super Sculpey Ultralight. As you can see, the tail is going to be the main support for the sculpture, so we're just going to bulk that out too to make sure it's extra strong. Now I'm just going to poke in the holes for the other 4 tendrils, and this will make it easier to sculpt because I can sculpt them when they are not attached to the body. Now let's go ahead and bake this, and once it's baked and cooled down, let's cover it in clay. This is Super Sculpey Original. Now I'm going to temporarily attach the tendrils so I can see where I'm going to add these little knuckle pieces. I'm just adding balls of clay and blending them in at the base of each tendril. Now on a regular face hugger, this guy's mouth would be right in the center of this chest area, but since that's not going to be there and it's going to have a creepy elf head instead, we're just going to add some different shapes here and there and give it some really creepy texture. Now I'm going to press in some detail with my ball stylus. And then we've got these little veins or tendons. I'm just adding these teardrop shapes in and blending out the edges. Now we're going to move on to the back, and I'm going to add these large scales going all the way up the spine. So we're going to start at the bottom, and then we are going to overlap each one like so, just blending in that top edge. And we're going to keep going and add some more bumps and nuances here and there. Using my super poker to blend them in, I'm just rolling it on the surface, and then I'm using the bigger end to smooth everything out. I do sell the super poker on my website if you want to get one for yourself. Now let's go in and add some tiny veins. They're just little snakes of clay that I'm blending in with my spoon tool. To create some more texture and unevenness, I'm using my tiny ball stylus. I feel like in a situation like this, the more veins, the better. Using the same process as the smaller veins, we're going to add some bigger veins down here. To make the scales a little more interesting, I'm rolling up each one and texturing the one beneath with my medium ball stylus. I just want to create these vertical lines. And let's just finish up the other side. And that's looking pretty good. The back is pretty much all set. Now we just got to add some more detail to that front area. And again, since this is not a typical face hugger, I don't really have anything to go off, so I'm just going to add some shapes and bumps where I think they make sense and look nice. Ah yes, some more veins. Now that all my details are on, I'm going to go in with a pretty heavy amount of clay softener. Just want to brush this onto the surface, sort of meld everything together and get it ready for another bake. I actually really like how it looks shiny like this. All right, into the oven. And once it's baked and cooled down, we can start working on the tail. I'm going to start by covering it in clay first, and then we're going to add some sort of ventral scales going all the way up. I'm going to start at the end of the tail here, just adding a snake of clay, blending one edge in, kind of like what we did on the back, and then we are going to just work our way up and keep overlapping these. Now for some final smoothing with my super poker, and then we're going to use our fingers to blend that uncured clay into the cured clay. When you do this, you really just want to smear it into the uncured clay as smoothly as possible. And then to finish it off, of course, brush on some clay softener mixed with Bacon Bond. And we're going to do the whole tail with clay softener. This is going to remove fingerprints and make everything nice and smooth. You can also do this with rubbing alcohol, but I think clay softener works better because it's thinner, designed specifically for clay. After adding a couple veins here and there, it's time to bake this guy again. Now, like the plush, this guy is going to have a mouth full of sharp, pointy teeth. So we are going to make these out of cos clay so that they stay flexible. That way, if I need to get my paintbrush behind them later on, I don't have to risk breaking them. Now, using my pliers, I'm going to put the tendrils into their final position. Now, when you are moving armature wire that is outside of cured clay, you want to make sure that you are not disturbing the cured clay. If you do, it will create pressure and it will crack. So make sure you are only bending the armature wire and it's not disturbing your cured clay in any way. All right, now after brushing on some Bacon Bond, of course, we're adding a snake of clay and completing the first tendril. And just like a finger, we are going to add a little bump on each of the joints. Using my super poker, I'm going to press in some wrinkles. Now let's repeat this process 5 more times. Not attaching all the tendrils at first made my life way easier because I don't have to worry about messing up the other ones when I'm just sculpting one at a time like this. And once we're done, we are going to poke it in with some Bacon Bond and then blend it into the surface. For an added detail, I'm just going to add a little bit of webbing. Now this one just didn't want to go in, so I'm using my pliers so I didn't smash all the clay, and it worked just fine. Now let's keep blending. Now I'm just going over all the areas where the uncured clay meets the cured clay with some Bacon Bond mixed with clay softener, and then we're going to set it aside and work on the head. To start the head, I'm using a ball of aluminum foil and I'm covering this in clay. Once my clay is on and it's nice and smooth, we're going to carve out this guy's big gaping mouth. Now to make my life easier when it comes to painting, I'm going to use some red clay for the inside of the mouth. I just mixed up this color using some brown and black and of course red. And I'm also using colored clay for the gums here. Now I'm just going to blend the gums into the rest of the face so that when I add the, I guess you'd call them lips, there's not going to be a bump underneath. But first we need to poke in the teeth, brushing on some Bacon Bond so they stick real nice, and then I am poking each tooth in one at a time. When the mouth starts to get too crowded, I'm using some tweezers to make this easier. Now we're adding the lip. This is just a flattened snake of clay. We're going to go around the entire mouth and then blend in that outside edge. Doesn't this look lovely? For the eyes, I'm just going to press in the eye sockets really quick, and then we're going to do a different technique to create the eyeballs themselves. I made these in Photoshop and then printed them out, and I'm going to dab some UV resin on top. I forgot that this was doming, so worked out really nice. It's nice and round, and we are going to cure it with a UV light. As you can see there, I was planning on using these glass cabochons, but I don't need to. There we go, eyeballs. Now let's cut them out and stick them on. Because the eyes are kind of translucent, I'm adding some white clay behind them so they're nice and bright. Now let's finish them off with a snake of clay and blend that in. Now for some wrinkles, we are going to add some vertical and horizontal wrinkles all around this guy's mouth and eyes. Now let's move on to the ears. We're going to give him some oversized pointy elf ears, of course. I'm going to shape him out with my ball stylus, and then of course use my super poker end for that part, and then blend everything in with the head. But it's a little too big, so let's trim it down a little bit and stick it back on. I added some clay behind the ear just so it has some more support. Now we're going to further blend it in, add some wrinkles, finish it off, and then repeat this process for the other ear. I'm just going to add some final wrinkles and then dab on some Bacon Bond and clay softener to give his skin a nice bumpy texture. Now let's stick on the head. And there we go, the Holiday Hellion is ready for its final bake. Once he's baked and cooled down, it's time for paint. I'm just using some cheap craft acrylics. This is Imperial Red chalk paint from Plaid or Folk Art, and I'm just going in and painting the entire body. This paint was really old and it smelled really bad. Once my red base coat is on, we're going to go in with a dark red wash. This is just paint mixed with water. I'm going to brush it on and then wipe off the excess with a paper towel. This technique is also called antiquing. It really gets the darker color into all the nooks and crannies and brings out the detail. And in my case, enhances the creep factor. Now we're going to add a dark wash to the head. This is actually Army Painter, like pre-mixed wash, and I'm going on the surface. It doesn't really like the surface. I think it's because of the Bacon Bond, so it's kind of puddling here and there, but that's okay. It gets the point across and it works out fine once you just sort of blend it in and keep layering it. So we're just going to go in, do the face, and now paint the teeth. Using a superfine paintbrush, we are just going to enhance some of those main wrinkles around the mouth and eyes, and then of course, dirty up the teeth. Now I'm going to dry brush a lighter version of his skin tone on the surface. Now for the accessories. One of my Holiday Hellions from years past donated these items, but first we're going to glue on his hair with some Fabri-Tac. This is synthetic wool. I'm just going to stick that on, style it, and cut it. Now we got to dirty up his pristine collar and hat, so I'm just using some watered down brown and just getting that all over the place, and then making sure it's completely dry before I attach it. And we're going to dirty up these felt parts too. Now let's stick on the collar with some more Fabri-Tac. Now for his hat. And his spiky trim. For the last step, we're going to use some Americana triple thick glossy varnish and really shine up his mouth and teeth and lips and gums and all of that. Alright, he's looking good. Say it with me. And he's done! My Facehugger elf on the shelf is complete. Sorry, not sorry. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think this guy turned out exactly how I was picturing him. And I do think he is a good realistic representation of this guy. Again, if you want to grab him, head on over to my website, aceofclay.com. They make great siblings. Focus on them. Not too shabby. As always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Ace of Clay, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.